Perfect. All right. So we're diving into these anger codes right now. Our mission today is going to be to bring deeper awareness to anger, what it is, why it's here for us, how we can use it as a very sacred tool to heighten our cultivation of energy management. But we want to start off with a quick little roundtable. So I'm going to pick out a couple guys. We want to understand, like, what is anger? So, Brother Huten, what is anger?
From my experience, I realized that repressed anger is the first symptom of the victim template. The more anger is repressed, the more we are operating in the victim template. And it's also our first reaction to injustice. And from what I am recognizing within myself is that every time it's injustice towards my own worth. Like whenever something happens that my soul knows I'm not worthy of it, but something happens, something I choose. I choose, like today it just hit me, I choose my own worth. But every time that I place my worth outside of me, anger arises. And when channeled, when used properly, anger, man, it's a powerful weapon. It's a powerful weapon to bring down systems, bring down governments, bring down tyrants. It's a powerful motivation for change. But when repressed, it's like it's our power. Anger is our power. When it's repressed, we're putting the power outside of us. But when if it's channeled and used properly, we hold the power and we actually do what we are here to do. From my understanding so far, that's been anger for me.
Thank you, brother. Brother Kai, what is anger?
Well, yeah, touching on that, anger for me is just the classic injustice response system. But it can go like your injustice, which you define as a personal injustice, can be a lot of different things depending on how you got your needs met at certain stages, because you can harbor like intense underlying anger for things you don't really understand. If somewhere along the lines in your development, your needs weren't met and you experienced that injustice and the justice was never served. So, yeah, so anger for me is just the injustice response system, but.
Okay. Thank you, brother. We're hearing some trends here. Brother Orlando, you'll be the last one. What is anger?
Hey guys, I feel that anger has a connection with fear, where we're just not connected with our truer self or our self-love. It definitely goes in conjunction. I feel it resonates with the injustice, the repressed anger. I know that when I don't channel my anger properly, or when I feel it and I don't channel it properly, I lash out at others that don't mean it, or probably something so repressed that something comes out truthful, but in a very angry way. But I feel that it's just a fear of, maybe I expected something and it didn't come out that way and I should have said something, but I didn't. And I feel like there is that proper way of really channeling it, which is necessary, because at the end of the day, we're humans and it's gonna come up. And so if we channel ourselves of what kind of fear is coming up for us, I feel we could channel anger a bit better.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. Okay. So I'm gonna just share my life as it pertains to anger, how I grew up, what anger looked like for me as a kid, just to kind of shed a little bit of personal side to the whole thing. So growing up, I was labeled as an angry kid. I was labeled as an angry kid because I would lose my temper, right? These are all things that I'm told is what my experience is. So follow along here as this child is told, this is what's going on with you, right? Things would happen that I would feel are unfair, and or I'm not understood, or I'm not being seen, or I'm not being heard, and I would lose my shit, and I would smash things, I would punch holes in walls, I would fucking lose it on people. And I was instantly told I have an anger problem. That this was something that was wrong with me. That this was something that I needed to basically tame or be better than, that I wasn't good enough when I did get angry. So I would get stuck in this cycle of like feeling these feelings of anger, feeling unheard, feeling misunderstood, feeling rejected, feeling emotionally abandoned by my parents. I would lose it and then fall into the cycle of shame. And as I got older, it became more apparent that like I was doing a bad thing. I fucked up again, missed it again. Oh, I punched another hole in the wall. Oh, and it was just like this thing, but like I was still getting angry. I was still feeling the depths of this injustice that I was experiencing. And the only way to gain that justice was to exert my own force over it. That would involve yelling at somebody, cursing somebody out, physical violence, needing to Hulk smash something to feel better. What I noticed too, a pattern was that I would feel the anger, I would have that huge release, and then I was exhausted. I was so fucking tired after. I would usually go take a nap because like all that energy just like came right out of me. And then it was just like, and I would fall asleep. I'd wake up, I feel like shit. I have a lot of apologizing to do, rinse and repeat. The anger stayed with me my whole life. Stayed with me my whole life. As I got older in my 20s, now you're dangerous. Me at 20 years old, at this size, with no cultivation, still blaming the outside world for the unfairness and the imbalances I feel within myself. Now I became dangerous. Now I could really hurt somebody. I could really hurt myself. I could really hurt my future. And there were many instances where I think I was protected, very much so, from really getting hurt, or really hurting somebody, or really disrupting where I stand right now. Whether it was people took a look at me and didn't want to get involved with this confrontation that I was seeking, or it just didn't happen, or I was protected over and over again from really like bad things going down. And the anger continued in relationships, and there's no hiding from this. And the reason there's no hiding from this is because anger is the sword in one of the hands of justice. The other hand, she holds the scales, and in one hand, she holds the sword. Now we understand and experience anger as this like unfairness. You're not hearing me, right? Somebody cuts you off. That's not fair. Somebody says something to you that is, unjust, or blankets your character in a certain light that you don't want to be portrayed in, or something that you perceive is not right. The anger ends up being triggered. Now, to zoom all the way out, outside of the stories of fairness and not being heard and not being understood and not being respected, or you're not listening to me, or you're not hearing my boundaries, or all these stories, beyond all these stories, what we're experiencing is an imbalance in energy, right? Unfairness. There's a story that's reflecting the imbalance we feel within ourselves. So the anger is actually a tool for bringing our awareness to an imbalance that is occurring within us. And we have an opportunity to either go outside to seek this balance or to come back inside and become the master of the energy within us. Now, so where do these stories exist, right? We said like not being heard, it's unjust, it's not fair, all these narratives are built through your ego, your attachment to form, your attachment to life. So they play out, it's going to play out in various ways. So what I wanted us to do is think of, close your eyes, everyone close your eyes. We're going to go into deep introspection right now. So we started off, as I said, we started off as the philosopher, right? Aiming at the stars. What is anger? Oh, well, it feels like it's an imbalance. And we try to describe this word anger from a philosophical sense. Now I want to take us into the stage of initiates. Okay, initiates, we're going to dive into our experience, the experience itself. In this moment, with your eyes closed, what is the angriest you've ever been? What is the angriest you've ever been? How did it express? What was it trying to show you? Now connecting to the angriest you've ever been, where do you feel that in the body? Coming back into the space, I'm gonna have a few brothers share. Brother Seth, what is the angriest you've ever been?
First, I just want everyone to just sit for 1 second and see if you can just feel me. What I'm going to put into this circle of ours. Sometimes when I listen to people speak about anger, I feel anger disrespected. I feel that it's pissed because humans still don't get it. Anger for me is authority. Anger for me is the right to be autonomous. And when I don't feel or respect the God of anger within me, the polar opposite is betrayal. So every incident that I've ever had where I was the most angriest was always the feeling I got was deep-seated betrayal. Betrayal against myself, betrayal against the people that I loved, and betrayal against anger itself, because like you mentioned, Brother Eisen, that I think deep down at the root, anger is completely different from the way we understand it. It's just that we keep looking at the veils we see anger through. Anger's coming through these veils, these tantrums, these episodes, and so we think anger is these things, but it's not. Anger is the force behind it. It's just we haven't done the work, and so we're casting this wand through this like murkiness, and then we're getting these perceptions of anger in the wrong way. It's sort of like love, like how love at its root is a certain essence, but then we all love uniquely. and we all have a different, unique perspective of what love is. And we're still so caught up on how we use our anger. And then we think that's anger instead of getting beyond all that. So for me, anger is my authority. It's my autonomy. It's what reminds me that I'm me and you are you. It's my conviction. And, you know, I'm always angry. I'm always angry. And in that anger that I feel every single day, I'm centered and I'm solid and I'm true to who I am. And it gives me my boundaries and it gives me my self-respect, which in turn, then I can respect you. Fuck, I've been through a lot. Tomorrow for me will be my 10-year anniversary from the day that I was arrested with all those fucking drug charges. And supposedly the minimum I would have got was 10 years. So tomorrow I would have been released, which means that every single day till tomorrow has been a gift. Everything, every suffering, every pain, every loss. Fuck, this woman just walked past with a yin and yang bag. Cool. You know, yeah, and anger has been, for me, a huge force in my life. Such a force. It's done good. It's done whatever, not so good. But again, I come back to like a lot of the things I did, a lot of the people I hurt or whatever, it wasn't even anger. It was how I was using the sword, how I was using the wand. It was my fault in the way I was casting it. Anger has its sole purpose, and then we're the ones who are puppeteering it in the most fucked up ways. And then we blame anger, and anger's like, you fucking disrespect me. I'm your authority. I'm your power. I make you, you. And so, yeah. And because anger for me has got such a clarity and a pure understanding of who it is, it doesn't budge even like a fraction, like you know, selfless love. It gets pissed all the time whenever we don't speak about it from its truth. It gets pissed. It's like I said, when I listen to even some of your brothers, or I listen to people on the street, fuck, I just want to punch you in the head. But I don't want to punch. I mean, metaphorically, like, it's the anger in me that's just like, you fucking disrespect me, you guys. You still don't get my worth. You still don't get my worth. Yeah. And so anger is our authority. It's a very, very serious truth. And so, yeah, we need to start thinking about every different aspect of ourselves at the essence underneath all of our trauma and our programming and our responses. Just go to the root cause of what resentment really is, or guilt. Like, go deep, deep, deep down. Get out of your veils, and you'll start to hold it in a different space. And then every time you feel it pull you in a direction, like anger pulls you to wanting to get, you know, to get, what is the word? I can't even think, but to get payback. Then you know that you're just now seeing anger through a veil, and you got to come back again. What is anger trying to show me? What is it trying to teach me? Yeah, the most angriest I've ever been. And it's crazy when you first asked that, Eisen, I was like, fuck, I can't even find one, man. Every day I'm fucked off. Every day I'm angry at something. And to like limits, they change. But I would have to say that one of the first experiences, so wait, actually, like yourself, you were like telling my story, bro. I've had a childhood of just being an angry kid too. And I called it passion, but they called it anger. And you know, yeah, breaking shit, all of that. Not having healthy ways to express it, parents who didn't show me how to hold emotions or understand them. But there was this one time in my life that like sort of triggered, I think it was it was the moment that the temple toppled. And I was walking with a friend, and we were about maybe 13. And there was a little boy with us who we'd been like hanging out with and taking care of. He was a family friend. He was about 10. And we decided to cut through the school at night. And we went through this little alleyway of the school, and we fucking walked right into the middle of 6 gangsters. And they were in the dark, and we were like, oh shit. And they're all in their rags and, you know, and all their colors. And we just put our head down and just sort of walked through the middle of all of them, because that was the only way. And then we just heard them start yelling all this stuff, and we had been about maybe 50 meters away. And then we looked at each other and realized we need to run for our lives. And we just started sprinting. And they were all chasing us. And I remember even in that moment, fuck, I was such a person of valor. And I looked to my left, and my mate and the little kid were running about 5 to 10 meters away from me. And then I realized I need to separate. I need to take this hiding. I need to take this whatever, this potential death, because everyone carries weapons. And so I was like, I need to do this to save them, to save that little kid. And so I just cut off and I ran another way, and it worked. They all just started chasing after me. You know, pack animals hunt the weakest link, and if there's one alone, so be it. And then they got a hold of me, and one of them put something to me, and I think it was a knife, and he put me in a headlock, and he just said, give me your shoes, and give me your fucking shoes. And I just remember being like, absolutely, fuck, what else do you want? You know, just don't take my life. And I gave over my shoes, and then they like he pushed me, and I just sprinted as soon as I got a gap. And I caught up with them just down the street. And for the first time ever, I felt so much fucking hate. And then it was like the catalyst for my whole experience after that, like wanting to hang out with like tough people and wanting to fight gangsters and wanting to just, it was just, like I said, it toppled the temple. It started the domino effect. And my mates asked me, like, what do you want to do? And I only had socks on. I said, we're going where we were going, which was to town. And I stormed all my way to town to see my friends at some festival in wet socks. I didn't take them off purposely. And I remember just walking the streets with this fucking pure, like so much hate. I couldn't even find words to speak. It wasn't even the one where you yell it, you vent out. It was even more intense than that. You can't even find words. And I looked at everyone on the street that I passed, like I could just fucking kill you all. And it just was like an unreal level of shame, of fucking shame to be treated that way. And it just, yeah. And then you look at what one little incident happens, and then I end up just this whole different person from that day. I was a good kid up to that moment. Still am a good man, but it's amazing. It's amazing what just the impacts people can do. And this necessary, because look at me now. I needed this conviction. But yeah, that's probably one of the most angriest times I've been, because I just felt betrayed. I felt so weak, so useless.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I saw Adrian had raised his hand. Adrian, we'll go to you next before we continue.
Yeah, anger has been like a really big thing in my life. I think it's I store mostly in the middle of my back, like right behind my solar plexus. And what I've come to is, for me, anger is attachment. When something is not the way I want it to be, then I feel anger. This is instantly what I start looking at my reality through is anger. And when I was younger, I was like a freak out kind of angry. And then when I turned like 12 around there, I realized
I can be really angry, but I don't have to express it. So after that, I was a calm angry, where I could be really angry and nobody will know. But what happened was I just didn't express it. So I just hold in that anger, you know. And it wasn't until my second ayahuasca ceremony where I started letting out this anger through my voice, through yelling, where I started to feel a relief of anger, and that it's probably a good idea for me to actually express it and to say when I'm angry. But the most angry I've ever been, which there's no one time I've like, I feel like anger has really driven my life a lot. But this is the first time I came to Costa Rica, and there's this Nicaraguan kid that was like my age or older, obviously just fit as hell, like this real dense muscle. And what I knew is he really liked fighting. And one night he got really drunk and a lot of different drugs. And he was just mad. He was really mad. And he sits next to me, and I'm thinking, bro, like, don't do anything, you know? And what ended up happening is he was just really angry. He was saying a bunch of shit in Spanish. And then what I understood was he was calling upon the devil to give him strength, something like this. He looks at me and he just starts saying something to me and takes a beer bottle and smashes it. And he has a smashed beer bottle now. And I'm thinking, okay, I live around this kid. If I start something with him, it's gonna start a war. It's not just gonna be one fight. Because at this point, I lived around him for like a month. Like, I'm gonna start a war, and then I'm gonna have to leave and find somewhere else to be, you know. And okay, he's sitting in front of me. He's saying all this shit in Spanish. I don't understand him. Sitting there with a broken bottle, and I refuse to get up. I refuse to hit him or anything. And I'm telling him, sit down. Though I'm trying to stay calm, I'm getting very, 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 very angry because something like this, someone trying to force their power upon someone else, makes me very, very, very angry. You know, after, you know, he got distracted with someone else, and it was like this older guy, maybe in his 50s, and this dude ended up slapping him, which was really nice to see. That was probably the angriest I've ever been, and the longest I've been angry. I was angry after that for like a week, you know. Other than that, it came down to my voice, not being able to express myself or know how to express myself. So thus not being able to express my anger. You know, like also at my house, I wasn't allowed to be angry. If I was angry, now I'm in trouble. It's like, what are you angry for, kind of thing. And so yeah, it really came down to not being able to express myself. And when I was too young to do something, when I was too small to go on a roller coaster, I'd get really angry. You know, it's a big thing. But I find that for me, anger is simply just attachment to situations, you know. But I find that I'm kind of always angry, and I'm always happy, and I'm always sad, and I'm always connected to these emotions. But when the situation calls to look through the lens of anger, it's like I just connect to that emotion that I already felt, you know. But essentially, I remember watching Avengers or something, and folks said I'm always angry, and I'm like, yeah, that it's like that, you know. But yeah, that's all.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Okay, Brother Dean, I see your hand is up.
Yeah. Anger, the relationship with anger for me, it's been a journey. Worked through a lot last year, really going into it and really feeling what's there, what the lessons for me around anger is I feel it as this feminine energy. It can't be contained, it doesn't want to be controlled or confronted even. You know, even the word confronting anger, it's like you want to confront anger. You want to use anger to, you want to control anger. You know, it's not going to make it more angry. I see it as this powerful protection energy. And there's a fear there that's being protected. You know, what are we protecting? You know, what's the work really was to not look at the anger. Anger's anger, it's an energy. But what is this energy protecting? You know, that's really the question I needed to ask myself. What am I protecting? And in those moments when I feel and felt the force of that energy, the anger, what really helps me to truly release and unhook was to truly discover what was it protecting. These are the questions I was asking myself. What are you protecting? It's underneath here. And every time I found something, and it was that the free energy from that fear in those moments that allowed me to really go into what it was protecting. The grief, the sadness, the shame, the fear, the energy in those moments allowed me to have the strength and courage to fully feel what was underneath it and to really unhook it finally. And, you know, once I discovered this for myself, it was just a continual process of anytime it was being angered, it triggered to see the layers of what was underneath it. And not, it's, you know, the anger itself is just an indicator. It's an engine light on the dash of your car, and to focus too much on the indicator and try and fix the indicator, it's like getting a hammer and smashing the engine light on the dash of your car, and the engine light might be off, but the issue is still underneath. It's still it's under the hood, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to share that and that process for me, and I know it's really worked and really helped to go into the experience and use the energy in the moment to really go into it and really feel it fully.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. The protection, we've heard it a lot. We've heard a lot, right? We've heard to protect. We've heard in terms of like always having anger there, like the sword is always there, you know? So I want to share some stories, because this is what ultimately led me back to really understanding the root of anger and its reductionist view. If we reduce it all the way to the fucking core, what is it? You know? And then when we see the core of it, right? The core, the energy, like the essence of this emotion, now we can connect to all the various ways it's playing out in our lives and how we experience it through the lens of our beliefs, because ultimately the emotion is tied to the beliefs we hold about ourselves. Like who you are is how you experience anger. So I'm going to speak on it from my experience, and hopefully that brings something into awareness for you in terms of it. So the angriest I've ever been, this happened a year ago. So picture me coming to Costa Rica, okay, seeing Shanti, seeing the house, and Shanti lives with Adria. Okay, some of you may know from seeing on Instagram. So when I come here to Costa Rica, the way I grew up too is like, you don't tell people where you live, first of all, right? I'm in a third world country here. There's these two women who are like these goddesses, this beautiful house. And like, it's, you know, there's a bit of a, you know, there's a bit of a vibe where I live on the Caribbean side. So naturally I come in, my fucking protection like is through the roof. Like I bought a gun. I'm like all this shit. I'm like, yo, seeing where these women are like security breaches instantly. I'm like, this has all this, these things change. Nobody can know where we live. This is the deal. Last year, before I leave to the cabin, I go to Adria. I say, yo, no men are to come to this house. Okay? Because I knew her friend was visiting from the States. I said, no men are to come to this house. I don't care if your friend meets somebody at the beach and they hit it off. No man will enter my fucking house. Do you understand? Shanti was sitting there. Adria was sitting there. She's like, yeah, for sure. Like randoms don't come here because I've trained these women that people don't just come to our house. People don't just know where we live. So that was agreed upon. A year ago, right? Then we fly to the cabin. One night, I wake up dead out of my sleep. And you guys have felt my psychic abilities through this group. I wake up out of my sleep in a cold sweat. I turn to Shanti. I'm like, there's been men at our house. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, call her right now. There's been men at our house. She's like, it's 3 a.m. I'm not going to call her. I'm like, all right. Went to sleep. 7 a.m. I wake up. First thing I do, fucking call her. Yo, Adria, has there been men at our house? She's like, oh, no, I said, have there been dudes at our house? She's like, oh, what do you mean dudes? I'm like, has there been men at our house? She's like, yeah. And she starts naming like 5 different guys. Yo, I fucking lost it. I fucking lost it. Okay. I've never been this angry in my life. And I've been angry. Okay. I'm feeling it right now in my body too. Like I want to smash something. I fucking lost it. I called this chick every name in the book. I absolutely destroyed her. I fucking smashed some shit in my house. I was screaming. I went outside. I started smashing shit outside. Turns out she broke the agreement. Her friend met some dude on the beach. She allowed her friend to bring him back to the house. The guy slept over at our house. Her friend did this again another time. And then she had a fucking potluck at my house with people as well that came through. So now her friend has brought over 2 guys to the house. Okay, right? The agreement's been broken. Sat with it. You know me, I'm a game player. So I'm like, okay, like the fuck is really happening to me right now? Okay. And it hit me. Only a man who fears his death would act like that. Only a man who's terrified for his life would have reacted that way. The story I was telling myself was beyond the agreement that she broke. It was that now we are in danger. Now people know where we live. Now we are exposed. And now I was scared. So my anger came out because I felt this massive fear of death looming over me. And in that moment, I realized that my anger, at its very essence, is the grief of my potential non-existence. My anger is my pain masked. My anger was my fear of my death. So I started to think, then every time I get angry, am I fearing my death? Yes. At the most reductionist level, yes. When you get angry at somebody for not hearing you, what is it that you're really saying to yourself? If they don't hear me, I'm not worthy. If I'm not worthy, that threatens my survival. If it's a threat to my survival, I have something to protect. And it's going to play out in the most nuanced ways. going to play out in actually feeling like you're threatened for your survival. And it's clear, yo, you told people, now people know where we live, and now I have a reason to be angry. Right? It's going to play out as, you didn't understand me. My wife isn't listening to me. She's like emotionally abandoning me. And that means that I'm not worthy of her love. And if I'm not worthy of her love, this is threatening to my survival. Ultimately, we fear being banished from the tribe. This is what we are protecting ourselves against. Now, so we end up protecting ourselves from our worthiness, protecting ourselves from this fear of death. But if we have to protect something, if we have to defend something, it inherently means we feel attacked. What is the aspect of self that feels attacked? It's going to be coming from your egoic self. Right? So beyond how the anger plays out, this is not a bad thing. There's no good or bad with the anger. It just is. And as it was stated by Brother Seth, like, how are you wielding that sword? The external world is mirroring your internal world. So every time you go to stab in the external world, you're stabbing yourself. This imbalance that we feel within ourselves, this is what anger is bringing our awareness to. It's not fair. It needs defending. It needs justice. It needs protection. You are justice. You are the scales of justice. You are the sword of justice. You're holding the scales at all times. You can feel the imbalance in the energy. You're able to feel it. Now, the thing is, with my example of the angriest I've ever been, is I was seeing it and experiencing it through the lens of my beliefs. The beliefs that I was holding, that if people get brought to our house, people now know where we live, people might now speak to other people, people might now the beliefs I was holding that made that were the layers of this lens that I was seeing the experience through. Those beliefs were leading to the emotion of the anger. So before we move on to mastery, with respect in terms of the fact that there's only 45 minutes, I see Seth and Adam put their hands up. I'm gonna go to Adam. Okay, Seth, we'll go to you right after. Adam, you had put your hand up. Drop in.
Yeah. I initially didn't want to share. I have to actually thank Seth for pointing out that I can take up space. I didn't want to share because I felt like I already took up space. And I just want to share that this moment wasn't my angriest moment, but it was one of my angriest moments, that in this process of being here with you guys, I mean, something that sticks with me, where it kind of illuminates the repression and the direct expression of the chaos of my life. The oppression being my father, repression being my father, and the incredibly violent, chaotic woman known as my mother. When I was 18, one of the most, and when you said for us to drop in, and actually brought up tears in my eyes. I'm learning how tears actually store lots of very valuable toxins and other very beautiful things when you release tears somatically. My mother, she was the source, like I've shared with you guys, the violence that I would witness from her, and like having to rip her off my dad and things like this. She just lost it on me. I won't get into the details of it, but she fucking lost it. And this was my first time, like, as a child who just would hide and curl up or try to rip my father off or avoid. I don't know what came over me, man. but I just snapped. It happened like this, and I grabbed her, and like it happened within 2 seconds, and I grabbed her, I shook her, and my head slammed into her head. I chipped her tooth. I chipped my mom's tooth. And I was so, I was so scared. And she, she left, she stormed out. I was terrified. I'm like, oh my God, I don't even, like, it just happened. It's not like I was like headbutting her. It was just like such a fast movement. Like our heads just collided. It's not like I was trying to like fucking bump my head. We just collided. And my dad, like every other time things went down, he was just like, he had nothing. He had nothing, I'm still, I'm a teenager, but I'm still like I'm looking for something. I'm looking for a parent. And he was just like, yeah, like your mom can do that. She can bring that out. And then he just like went to his room and turned on the TV. And for me, that is the most memorable. I mean, last week I can say that was my angriest. I fucking lost it, but like that shit really has still with me, and I'm still digesting it. And as I'm hearing, and it was actually through your share of this moment that called me forward to want to take up this space where I'm now looking back and seeing this like perfect union of my identity of these two figures that impact, that have, and seeing the repression of my father, the lostness of my father, and this uncaged rage of my mother. And I'm like I was shaken up with the both of them and poured out into here. And yeah, when we tapped into that, and 2 weeks ago when I did that Wim Hof shit that I tried to recreate when I was really tired with you guys, I was addicted to that medicine. Trying to recreate that on my own. That's the memory I tapped into when I was doing it with a proper Wim Hof guidance workshop. And I just fucking went straight to that memory and I cried. And those tears are powerful. Those tears, I realize now after learning about what are in tears, were the things that relieved the toxins that were stuck in my organs. And that for me is why I felt so grounded and at peace that next day, but because of those tears. So thank you for bringing me back to that moment when you asked us to tap into that. I still have more tears to shed with that. So thank you, Matt, for witnessing me with this and listening.
Thank you, brother. Brother Seth.
Yo. So just real quick, I just wanted to say about that anger and authority sort of autonomy. It's because when I look back at my entire history, the only times I ever get upset is when my authority or autonomy is tested or potentially going to be taken. And I study my son, and he only ever gets angry when you're trying to take something of his or you're trying to tell him how to be. It's always autonomy. It's always authority of his own life. So just wanted to just quickly put that in for the brothers to sit with and think about that. It comes from even fucking our children from day dot.
Yeah. And autonomy, and honestly, it's going to come all the way down to what you believe. Do you believe you're being controlled by this person? Do you believe that you're not worthy because they're not listening to you? Do you believe, like, what is it that you're protecting? What is it that you're defending? And because we feel it even as children, right? It's our attachment to survival, our ego, our attachment to form. Brother Mike, I'm going to give you the last word before I continue.
What's up, brothers? Great session today. I'd feel weird if I didn't share on anger, and I definitely have a deep history with it, and it's something that I continue to work on And, you know, I witnessed a lot, when we did the meditation, what it brought me back to, the thinking of like the angriest moments. It brought me back to all the relationships I've been in, my ex-wife, my ex-girlfriend, and my wife now. And, it hurts to know that the angriest I've ever been was around people that I love the most, that they got it. They got the direct result of my anger. And, and that's the whole thing, like why? Well, why did I let it get to that? Why did I act that way? Why did I say those things? I think, what kind of hit home for me right now was what you were talking about with the, stabbing the external when we're really, stabbing the internal. And, I witnessed a lot of stuff growing up with my parents in the form of anger and like early childhood stuff. And just in my neighborhood, it was just everywhere. It was just anger was a form of expressing how people were feeling. And I remember being a kid, and there was a fire broke out in a duplex across the street, and a kid this is around 4th of July, he had shot off a bottle rocket, and it got onto the roof and it lit this duplex on fire. And like the fire trucks are there, the whole neighborhood's out there, the police are there, and the mom is literally chasing the kid around with a stick, and she gets him and she beats the shit out of him in front of everybody. And there was probably, I don't know, 60 people out there, and cops didn't do nothing. Fire, nobody did nothing. And this is the 80s. And she just and this kid is screaming. He's fucking screaming. And everyone's like, he deserved it. It was like this cultural thing, like, yeah, beat the shit out of that kid. He should have never did what he did. And so it was like this environmental thing as well. I believe that was a part of like, this is how you act, and this is how you deal with these emotions. And then I would see it in my home. And then as an adult, I'm doing the same exact shit. And, fast forward, I get sober. I do the 12 steps. Within the 12 steps is full accountability of how my life had turned out. And so looking at all those ugly moments, ultimately with the internal thing, I was angry with myself. I was angry with myself on not being able to manage my emotions. It would trigger things of abandonment, because I had a lot of that in my childhood. And that's how I instinctually, that instinct of anger, that's like a part of, I think, our fight or flight, to keep me alive, to protect my family if anything were to happen. Like, anger is there, it's in all of us. And I think I just wasn't. Now what are we? We're the chain breakers. I'm breaking the chain of now having this self-awareness of like, I'm using anger incorrectly. I was never taught properly of what anger is really used for, and that's, to me, it's in this fight or flight and this instinct that we're born with. But now it's like, okay, it's triggering the unworthiness, and I know that now it's just that full self-awareness of when that comes up, of when I'm being triggered, like, oh, here it is. Here's that energetic shift. I'm fucking pissed again. Why am I pissed? Oh, I'm hurt. I'm incapable of tapping into my feminine side and expressing that hurt, expressing those feelings of unworthiness. And it's this practice. It's this practice that here it is again. And, you know, in that practice, I'm able to catch it. And sometimes I'm not able to catch it, but I'm getting better at it. That I do know. I am getting better at it. My wife's pretty good at it. She's like, "You're fucking pissed again. Here it is." And then I take my break, we reconvene, and it didn't have to get to this thing, you know? So yeah, that's all I gotta share. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, bro. And thank you for being a humble student of anger and being eager to learn from it at this stage in your life too. Because I can feel and resonate with a lot of what you're saying. So we're gonna move on to the mastery of anger, okay? We've got about half an hour left. So before we really dive into this, the mastery, so we started off with the philosophy, what is anger, okay? Then we moved on to being an initiate, talking about our experience of anger. Now we're talking about the mastery of anger, so the wisdom that we carry, the integration of these lessons, okay? How do we play with this energy now? So we've discussed how at its core, anger is protecting your life, right? And the myriad ways in which you fear your death and the way it plays out in these nuanced stories through the beliefs you hold about who you are. This anger, this need to protect, this need to defend, this need to seek justice, this need to ultimately regain a sense of balance from the imbalance that we are feeling. This need ends up being used kind of to our detriment and to our lack of cultivation. So first, and I've shared the story with you guys again, but I shared the story with you guys before, but I want to share it again in order to truly hold this experience of anger, to truly allow yourself to become a master of it and continue mastering it, is to understand your capacity to hold. I gave the example of my father on the beach. We were sitting there and two guys were playing in Turkey. We were on the beach, two guys were playing keep-ups with the soccer ball behind them, and the ball came whizzing by his head. And he turned and he said to me, "If that ball hits me, I'm gonna lose it." And I turned to him and I said, "Pops, if you turned and saw that those kids had autism, would you still get angry if the ball hit you?" And he said, "No, I wouldn't." So I was like, "So you're telling me right now you have the capacity to experience this differently?" It's not about, oh, you have the ability to not get angry, but you have the ability to experience this differently. Why? Because he has the capacity right now that he's holding various beliefs. Now, what he's energetically feeding, what beliefs he chooses to energetically feed, becomes how he experiences that event. Right? So he's holding these beliefs that these kids, if they hit me, they don't care, they have no respect for an older man, that he's like feeding these beliefs. Then the event plays out, and now he's confronted with these very beliefs and the imbalance. Right? So it's important to understand that no matter what the event plays out, we have access to experience it differently. Now, the probability of how we will experience it will depend on what we are energetically feeding. Now, it's not happening in that way I broke it down to you. It happens quick, right? Happens fucking quick. Somebody says something to you, and it's not like, oh, well, okay, what beliefs am I holding? And no, you just fucking lose it. You just feel the anger. And maybe you're not losing it. Maybe you're suppressing it. So we want to make that distinction between that suppression, that passive anger, and the projection. So we want to notice those shifts in our body, because ultimately, when I said it all boils down to energetically experiencing an imbalance based on the beliefs that you are holding. So you start to feel the imbalance in your body. You start to feel an agitation of energy, the flow of your energy centers. Now you are up here, It's an agitation. When we say, I'm getting heated, what does that mean? It's like the pressure, the heat is rising, the energy is not anchored deep into the body. It's anchored up here. Your breath becomes shallow, you become tense, you're in your fucking head, right? So we start to feel it in the body right away. So we have many opportunities here for mastery, and it's going to look different for each person. But ultimately, you want to be a fucking observer and listen, not with sound, but you want to listen to the shifts that are occurring within your body. You want to notice the imbalance before the imbalance makes you notice it. Because it will make you notice it. Because ultimately the anger is this tool to bring greater awareness to the imbalance that you are experiencing. And we know that the true master goes inward to seek that balance. He cannot seek that balance externally. And just know that if you are meant to seek it externally, i.e. fight for your life or the life of somebody else, you will. So it is never about an externalization of it. And I'll tell you something as well. Your boundaries will never come from anger. That's not a boundary. That's an emotional reaction. That's an emotional reaction to the self-betrayal that you've been accumulating for not honoring your boundaries to begin with. So anger oftentimes is going to be the emotion we experience when we've betrayed ourselves. When we haven't said no when we wanted to, when we haven't said, hey, I'm actually feeling some type of way, when we haven't placed the line and held it with integrity, we cannot blame another person for dancing back and forth upon it. But because we will in turn suppress the feeling of the imbalance, right? Anger is the feeling of the imbalance being shown to us. So if we suppress the feeling of the imbalance, over and over and over, it's just getting stored. It's getting stored, but it's not going anywhere. You cannot create or destroy energy. So it's not being destroyed. In fact, it's being stored in your liver. So Brother Adrian said he feels it in his, like in his back, in his lower solar plexus. He's storing the anger in his liver. And why do we lose our shit? Because we're ventilating that buildup. Now what? What do I got? Right? There's many things that you can do. It's not just black and white. One of the things you can do is ventilate externally. Go and scream. Go and smash something. Like, right? These are external ventilations. That's why they work. Now, sometimes you're going to want, you're going to want to ventilate this externally in a healthy way. And I'll teach you guys how I do that in a healthy way, right? Even though I don't feel this is my ideal, I don't feel it's necessarily the highest expression of cultivation, but sometimes a man does what a man has to do. And there is no right path. There is no, this is the line to walk to master anger. It's going to look different. You're going to experience it in different ways. Brother Adrian dropped a code in terms of acceptance. This is foundational to be able to even start to look at this. Oftentimes, we get frustrated and we become tense, right? The tension, because we are wanting what is to be what is not, which is, this person said this to me. I don't want it to be that way, right? This person's not seeing my way. I'm late. I don't want to be late. Oh, now I'm stuck in traffic. Here's another thing too. So we have acceptance as the foundation. You have to accept what is to be able to begin to play with it. Your anger and your experience of anger will shift depending on different factors and variables that are introduced. Sleep. All of a sudden, you're lacking sleep. Now you're easy to anger. Food. You haven't eaten. Now you're easy to anger. So you could be late for something. Now you're late. So you're on the road and there's traffic. Now you're easy to anger. Right? There's going to be different factors at play that will, in a sense, alter the scale that you hold, the sensitivity of the scale. Right? So we said you are justice, you are holding that scale. And at times, if there's a lack of sleep, a lack of food, certain things that are just shifted a little bit, now your capacity to hold that imbalance, let's say, the sensitivity of the scale, just a tiny pebble, and the scale drops drastically. So that's why it's not a black and white thing. Now, when we feel that buildup of the energy, when we're feeling that tension, it begins to feel chaotic, like I said, and we seek to ventilate it. So how do we play with this? How can we play with this? So if we're talking about alchemy, like what I like to do, so I gave you guys the example of potentially like going externalizing the anger and going outward and wanting to express that and ventilate it outward. There is no right and wrong. There's just your level of cultivation. The challenge that occurs with going outward in that expression of anger is that you now connect these synapses for that to be a pattern. So if every time I'm angry, I need to go start smashing my pillow and my bed, now I'm kind of reinforcing that this is how I need to react when I'm angry. If I need to go outside and scream and take a fucking bat to a tree every time I'm angry and like, I feel better, I'm reinforcing that this is how I need to go express it. So for me, if I'm going to allow myself, if I feel like I want to go and scream, what I will do is I will connect deep to that fucking pit that I'm feeling. I'm going to connect to it. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to draw in that fire, right? Cultivate that fire, that heat. I'm going to feel that agitation. I'm gonna hold it with acceptance and reverence that this is what I'm feeling. I'm gonna take full responsibility for what I'm feeling. Knowing it's in me. It's not on somebody else. I know I'm frustrated right now. I know I'm feeling unworthy. I know I'm feeling pain. I know I'm feeling fear of my own non-existence. And I hold that with reverence and I bring it up and I will let it go. But I'm connecting with it. I'm holding it, calling it forward. I'm seeing it. I'm listening to it. I thank it for what it's showing me. Now, the way I go internal with it, sometimes I need space. I take space. Sometimes these things can happen in the moment. And with practice and with certain like, sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's harder. Sometimes I need to go and take that space and sit with myself and breathe and hear my stories, right? Hear where I'm scared, hear where I'm in pain, hear myself, because it's not on anybody else to hear me. So I take the space I need. I go to class, right? I go to class. I turn my eyes in. I start to see the sensation. I can feel the sensation, the agitation. Okay, the energy is anchored high up in my body. It's chaotic. I can feel that sensation, and now I'm able to start to see the stories and slowly release that tension that I'm feeling. Releasing that tension. Now I'm holding the story, I'm holding the beliefs, I'm holding the pain, and I'm holding the sensation. In that moment, I'm able to open up the channel, right? You're releasing that tension. Releasing that tension. And we've practiced anchoring the breath deep down into the body. Now, why is anger so sacred? It's ultimately showing you where you need to bring balance back into your life. It's showing you where there's an imbalance. And oftentimes it's because we're betraying ourselves. Whether we're betraying ourselves from not honoring boundaries, whether it's we're betraying ourselves from not speaking truth, whether it's betraying ourselves from feeding beliefs of unworthiness. Bringing that sense of balance back to yourself, holding the scales of justice. What do you feel is unfair right now? Because if there is never that sense of imbalance or injustice, or this is unfair, or this isn't right, if there is never any of those feelings, you wouldn't experience anger. Everything would be fine. Now, some of us, our experience may be different. Some of us, our experience may be different. Some of us have maybe more experience being outwardly angry, losing it on people, breaking shit, yelling, screaming, swearing, fighting, all this stuff. Some of us may have been very inward with it. You know, ultimately, it's the same goal. We wanted to find the harmony. We wanted to find the peace. So we would either go outward with the anger to try to find the peace, or we would swallow it to try to find the peace. So the anger is necessary. The anger is necessary to protect life. Your ability to take out that sword and go defend life is vital. It's sacred. But we are safe. We are safe. And although the need to protect our lives will play out in even the most trivial of ways, it is on you to find that safety within yourself. It is on you to understand the internal mechanisms that have you feeling the imbalance, that have you feeling the scales being tipped. It's on nobody else to retip the scales for you. Because at that point, you're holding the scales, waiting for people to come and put more pebbles on one side or the other. There's no difference between that and you waiting for a handout, like a beggar with your hat out, waiting for money. So as several of the brothers have expressed that they are humble students of anger, it's for a reason. It's for a reason. You've been tasked with being justice within your own life. And now you will be tested. You know, your anger is a lot of shame is attached to it. But when you can see that it's just you trying to protect your life, you can appreciate what it's doing, even if it's not serving its purpose in that moment. So we heard that anger is the inner authority, but I offer you a different look. Your inner authority is your inner authority. It's your truth. It's your certainty. It's your willingness to uphold that. Now we also have transference of anger from the external world, where it doesn't have anything to do with us. Okay. I was walking in a park and I saw in Vancouver and I saw this sign on a park bench and it was this girl she had taken a picture of herself and she was beaten up. And she had a picture of the guy who found her in the park and like beat her up. And I saw that thing and it fucking enraged me. It had nothing to do with me. It wasn't anything about me protecting my life or this and that, you know, my personal direct experience that made me angry, but like it enraged me, right? That need for fairness, that need for justice. So when we experience anger for the playing out of the unjust aspects of the external world, this is a very real part of feeling anger, feeling helpless to those who are victims. And this is when we connect to the ultimate justice, the Most High, karma, what goes around comes around, whatever you want to attach to, that is the eternal, universal force of justice and harmony. This is the ultimate justice, that I don't have to take out my sword and go kill somebody because they drew a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad and these Muslims get upset and go want to kill people because of it. It's like, I thought you believed in God. So I thank my anger for all the times it protected me, for all the times it defended my worth, for all the times it seeked to defend my voice, for all the times it seeked to defend my life. But I know that I'm safe. I know that I'm whole. I know that I'm worthy. And as I continue to feel the anger as it reveals to me where I don't feel that way, I call and claim those pieces back to me. And I understand that nothing outside of me has the power to make me angry. It is what I believe about myself and the world around me that has me feeling this way. And nothing anybody says to me or does to me can make me feel anger. So this is going to be an experience that you have, some of you, that you play with, those brothers who are quick to anger, those brothers who suppress anger, those brothers who are just beginning to feel their anger. How is the fear of your non-existence playing out in your life? The most trivial of ways, the most simplest of ways, somebody disagreeing with us. Even somebody disagreeing with your opinion will trigger this survival mechanism. So we want to come into full acceptance. You're feeling the anger, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Even some of us who, might give the example when he's getting angry and his wife might be like, oh, see, you're getting angry again. Yeah, I'm getting fucking angry again. Yeah, I'm getting angry again. It's still showing me shit. I still have shit to see. I'm not failing because I feel angry in this moment. Where am I still protecting myself? Where do I still feel vulnerable? Where do I still feel threatened? Know that we have the capacity to experience it differently. It's all available to us in this moment. It's not something that is in some abstract point in the future where you'll never be angry again. And he lived happily ever after. And that was the end of everything. No, man. No, man. I don't want to ride with you if you don't have the ability to go there when you need to go there. That's dangerous to be around. If when shit hits the fan, you want brothers around you who are down, who have connected with that sword. You want brothers who will express that around you and be angry and feel comfortable, but own that shit to themselves and be like, yo, that was on me. Ultimately, we need to take responsibility for every aspect of our experience of reality. How we see it, how we react to it, how we respond to it, how we feel to it. Everything is us. Mhm. Yeah. You're fighting for justice, right? It's always the story of justice. Something's not fair. It's not right. It's unjust. But only if you saw it like, or only if more people, or only if it's like, okay. You're experiencing an imbalance energetically within you. Zoom the fuck out of these stories. You can zoom back in. The stories are not bad. Zoom back in. You're having an experience. You're having an experience as your character playing out in these stories. But zoom out. You're feeling an imbalance of energy within yourself. How do you begin to bring yourself back to center? Take the space that you need. Sit with that. Feel it. Circulate it back in. Open those channels. Breathe back. Ground that breath deep into the body. Feel it. Release that tension by accepting what is. Know that what is cannot be changed. Hold it with reverence. Surrender to the moment. Feel when you've been triggered into your survival mode and that you are not feeling safe. How can you create that sense of safety for yourself? Because the world will abandon you over and over again. The world will continue to abandon you, to not understand you, to not hear you, to not recognize you. It'll continue to be, global fucking issues that enrage you. Like the unfairness in the narrative will never go away. There will always be something that we feel is like imbalanced or unfair. It's just the nature of the duality we experience. We don't, this idea of everything being perfect in a utopia where nobody's ever angry again. It's like, I guess, if we want to attach to that dangling carrot and be miserable forever. Mm. All right, we got about 5 minutes left before I open it up. To the brothers who live angry, you can put that sword down. You can put that sword down. It's safe. It served you really well. It's gotten you to exactly where you're supposed to be. You're stubborn on this one, I know, and I can feel, I'm going to call some brothers. I can feel like Brother Seth, Brother Adrian, some underlying, like, kind of just like a low-key angry state of being, because you've had to protect your worth, you've had to protect your life physically, you've had to protect your to be deemed worthy of love. That constant state of tension, that constant holding of the sword, right? That sword is heavy. That sword is heavy. It takes a lot of energy to keep holding it. Trust yourself to sheath it. It's not going anywhere. And it's not as easy as saying release the tension, but literally, like, when you feel yourself, like, soften, soften, soften. When your life is actually in danger, trust that you will fucking show up. When you're physically in danger, you will show up. You're hardwired to do so. Your opportunity is to see where you're not in danger and soften to your experience. Chances are none of us, moving forward will ever experience something that puts us in physical harm like that, where we'll need to even pull the sword out. We can be firm with our boundaries. We can be firm with our authority and our masculine flame of clarity. We can be firm without being angry. I can set my boundaries from center and speak my truth firmly and gently at the same time. One second, my cat is clawing at the door. So we're going to wrap it up. I know probably some brothers had something they wanted to share, but if you have something to share it in the Telegram group. Some afterthoughts, what comes to you, okay? I'm going to be respectful of the time so it doesn't drag on. The experience of anger is going to be unique to each one of you because you are so infinitely unique. What makes you up, your set of beliefs, your experiences, everything that layers into who you are is going to determine how you experience anger. So that, with that said, there is no right way or wrong way. There is just your way. Bring balance, bring justice back to your sense of self and your state of being. Separate the sensation from the story. Support that process. What does that look like? Does that look like taking space? Does that look like going for a walk? Does that look like just noticing in the moment that you were triggered because your woman said something to you that makes you, that pokes a pain? Are you trying to superimpose what is not upon what is? And is that creating unnecessary frustration and tension within you? How can you fully accept and surrender to what you see? See it as a tool, beautiful tool, bringing awareness back to self, shining a light on the beliefs that you hold about who you are. It's a tool to see yourself, a tool to see yourself clearly. So we hold it with reverence because it helps us see ourselves, another mirror. Take fucking responsibility for your lives, every aspect of it. We'll leave it at that. Much love to you, brothers. All right. You well?
Love you, brother. Thank you.
Have a great Sunday, my boys. Love you.
Love you all.
Next time.
Much love.